이것이 하늘의 검!
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the second half of our 2016 League of Legends KeSPA Cup Round of 8 broadcast. We're coming back after a really hard-fought, impeccable win there by ESC Ever, continuing their KeSPA Cup dominance, taking out the second-place Worlds finishers Samsung Galaxy, and getting right into our second series, which is KT Rolster taking on KONGDOO Monster.
Yeah, and this series is going to be a little exciting, given that this is the first time that we're seeing KT Rolster play in a very long time. In their lineup tonight, Someday Score, Steel, Fly, and Arrow, and Steel couldn't really find a lot on this guy, and he is now the jungler in place of Score for KT, and I'm expecting big things from this team tonight.
Right, no prior competitive history, at least from what we can see, and very meta jungle champion pool, so not really too many notable things there. The big thing that is notable is that he's playing in place of Score, who many people would rate as one of, if not the best jungler in LCK last season. So some very big shoes to fill. Of course, over here, an unchanged roster, Roach, Punch, Edge, Soul, and Cougar to round out the lineup for KONGDOO Monster.
Yep, and KONGDOO Monsters here in the round of 8. They also recently got back into LCK, so this is quite a year and a year's end for them, I guess. And moving into tonight's match, even though there is a new jungler for KT, I still feel like they have their work cut out for them.
That is very true, and for KONGDOO Monster, what's always been kind of the coolest about them, as you see right there, I think it said LS Rapid down there. I thought that was for the coaches, but that is their coach that you got a chance to see on screen. Like I said, one of the biggest changes, not only just up in the top lane, getting rid of Hippo and subbing in Roach for him, is the addition of NC, the famous StarCraft player, as their coach. Lots of experience there, and it's really been interesting to see kind of the effect that that's had on KONGDOO here in KeSPA Cup.
Yeah, and their 2 pick and ban drafts last week were pretty standard, cookie cutter, and you know, nothing super unconventional coming out from them, and I feel like today's match will actually be a real test of where do they really stand as a team, and what sort of information will actually tell us about what maybe we could expect from them in the Season 7 season of LCK.
That's true. We will be seeing them. We will not be seeing CJ Entis, as that was sort of the swap during the promotion series, but we are going to get a chance to see KT Rolster here as well, and also a chance because this is the first time we're seeing them fielded since their LCK performances, or since their playoffs, trying to qualify for Worlds. It's a little bit different seeing Steel in the jungle, and many puns will be made because of his very impeccably chosen name as we get into picks and bans here for game number 1, starting up here in just a minute.
Yep, and you know, I really do wonder, because we have not seen the big blue dragon in a long time, if we will actually get to see it from Fly, because he's the one that actually popularized it in Korea. That's a pick that's been completely absent from this tournament.
It definitely has. Aurelion Sol did receive some nerfs in the patch just following Worlds. I believe it was 6.19. So, I mean, they're kind of nerfs, but more just like changes to sort of redistribute his power. And while he's still actually a very common solo queue pick, competitive play has been a little bit absent there from the Giant Blue Dragon. So let's get into champion picks and bans. The first ban, Jace against Someday. Definitely a great target ban there. Of course, taking Echo away from Roach there. Bard away from Hachani, although he's been primarily one of those more engaged melee support kind of players.
Yeah, the Bard ban is a little bit bizarre, because when I think of Hachani, I think of Taric, I think of Braum, I think of Alistar. Thresh having a lot of popularity lately. He sort of still is a semi-tanky engage support that we could see come out. So the Bard ban definitely a little bit questionable for me. Everything else, though, I think definitely looks a little bit standard. And we'll have to see how they finish out their picks and bans.
The Jhin ban against Sol takes away his most comfortable pick but I don't feel like that really limits him too much. There's still Caitlyn, which could definitely be taken early, and Ashe. So AD carry, unless you want to really focus that position in bans, I'm not really sure if that really limits Soul too much. And while we didn't see a lot of presence from, okay, well, there's the Nidalee ban. I was like, okay, well, we can't have a pick and ban in KeSPA Cup without a Nidalee ban.
Well, this means that Syndra is first picked 100%. The Vladimir ban is a way of saying that, okay, if you don't want to ban Syndra, then that means that you have to give us Nidalee. Or if you do ban Syndra, we get Nidalee. If you ban Nidalee, we get Syndra. So sort of forking KT Rolster into giving them one of those two very big power picks. And with the Vladimir gone, I don't think there's any real quote-unquote counter champion that remains in the mid lane at least.
You could pick something just like Victor for the wave clear, or Orianna to play safely, but at the same time, I mean, that just lets Syndra get kind of gigantic. So should be the lock-in here for KONGDOO Monster, and with that in their hands, we switch over to KT Rolster, see what two picks they want right off the bat. We talked about how the AD carry pool not really limited, so there's always those options. And while Someday thinks that Teemo might be a happy little face, it's probably not going to be a face that we'll see here tonight. Although, I will say, I believe KT Rolster were one of the teams that accidentally picked Teemo last season. So, if there is any team to pull it out again, maybe it's that experience they want to have. Although, I definitely don't think they want to repeat that performance.
Yep. And Elise, she might be locked in right now, and no, they do swap last second.
So let's go swap for the duo lane, if that is actually what is locked in.
Yeah, and they might just be doing this because, again, Ashe is a slight soft counter to Caitlyn, and there's a high chance that Caitlyn does get picked by the enemy team. And so it's a nice little preemptive pick, and the Karma, by no means does it necessarily need to go to the support
nice
role, but would be weird to see Fly play it.
Nice to see Arrow not playing, but still there in the crowd in the form of a giant head just being waved around. In the meantime, swapping back over to KONGDOO Monster, you said Caitlyn the probable pick, but we have actually seen Ezreal in one performance here today. Certainly a little bit lower on the tier list, but very powerful in his own right. I've seen a few different Ezreal builds. Trinity Force maybe coming back. We've seen that a couple of different times. And that's the AD carry choice locked in for KONGDOO Monster.
Yep, and now Lee Sin and Ezreal, again, it's looking like a very standard team composition. You have the Syndra in mid lane, Lee Sin. These are all just basically meta picks, and they don't really give away any sort of styles or what their team comp is really going to go for. And we still have yet to see their top laner and their support, so definitely a lot of change that could occur there.
KT Rolster, the reason I referenced the accidental Teemo pick earlier, the reason that happened is because they waited and hovered the champion for too long and they ran out of time. So they keep doing that same thing where they'll hover some wacky champions, but hopefully we do actually get the lock-ins that they need, and with the Rise at least, that certainly seems possible. What do you think of Fly locking in the Rise? This is the second time we've seen this matchup today.
Yeah, this is actually the second time that we've seen this matchup, and whenever I've talked to high-level mid players, they don't generally think of Rise as a necessary counter to the Syndra. And we also see that Fly right now has the Ghost still selected as his summoner spell, which is a little bit different than Crown's Exhaust, which we saw actually have pretty good effect against Syndra. But I still don't feel like this is a matchup that you would want to take if you could have otherwise avoided it through picks and bans, but still going to be fine nonetheless. KONGDOO Monsters rounds out their draft with just staying completely standard as the Poppy and Braum finish that out for them.
I'd like to see the Braum pick. Maybe it's certainly a strength for Googer, as he does also favor those, but also removes it from Achani, big Bard or a big Braum player. Okay, wow. Totally blanked on the name, but we'll lock in a Trundle, so that's actually kind of interesting to see that as well. We'll put the Karma in the support role, Trundle up top. In one world, you can actually see that swapped around and maybe a tank Karma top lane, but or maybe put the Rise top, because that's something we've seen from a few of our outlier players here, but most likely going to be Trundle top, Karma support with Fly on the Rise.
Yep, and so basically pretty standard team compositions for both sides. Although KONGDOO Monsters has a little bit more initiation tools than KT Rolster. KT Rolster does have the gear of picks inside of that Elise and the Rise. with the Ashe.
Certainly do have a lot of lockdown potential, and maybe you put like a Chani tether on, you just actually don't go anywhere. KT Rolster, this is the first time that we're getting a chance to see not only their new jungler Steel, but them as an entire team after the postseason from last year's LCK. So a lot of questions to be answered about their power level. Certainly one of the big four teams coming into this tournament. They were seeded into the round of 8. We'll see if they deserve their spot. They're playing up against KONGDOO Monster, Roach, Punch, Edge, Soul, and Cougar. The lineup that they will be fielding here, not quite the lineup that they played in Challenger, but hopefully some improvements. And here are the monsters: KT Rolster, Someday, Steel, Fly, Arrow, and Hachani down there on the Karma. So get out there on Twitter, hashtag KeSPA Cup, to let people know what you are watching, hashtag KDM win or KT win, to show your support as we get into game number 1.
There's a bird and freak show!
Cheers from both crowds as we get into our first game of this best-of-3 quarterfinal match. Now, this is actually a very big committal with all 5 champions down on the bottom half of the map. Now, KT do have that cocoon. If Steel starts for him and it starts with it, it's a big committal. Here comes Hachani walking forward just to maybe see what's out there. Not revealing too much, but an interesting start from KT.
Yep. And we've seen this time and time again with Karmas early on, looking for any sort of advantages that they can gain over their opponent.
Hachani didn't underbuy, so trying to trade for the gold to buy a pink ward like we saw in our last series. But why do you think KONGDOO didn't fall into that trap?
I think it's basically at this point in time with how often these type of trades and cheeses have existed. It becomes easier to resist them and not get hit by them, and sometimes people just get hit by them because they're least expecting it. But at this point, it's basically been sniffed out, and we might just see a little bit of aggression early on as they try to disrupt the golems.
Hachani will walk around the corner, but that's actually a little bit of a rough spot. Double exhaust going down. Oh, Hachani. The Hachani we know and love is alive and well, being forced to blow not 1, not 2, but 3 summoner spells before 2 minutes into the game. Oh, Hachani, we've missed you. Not quite giving up first blood like he is sort of infamous for, but still a rough way to start the game.
Yep. And not going to be the complete end of the world, but wow, Cougar really getting some damage in on Hachani. And they have to be very careful with him down here in the bottom lane.
Oh boy. All right, well, we always talk about this when it comes to things like Victor, or in this case, Syndra in the mid lane, when you're playing with Lee Sin. Monolith jungler could always trade over that blue buff, but he actually started topside, which is a little bit strange for Lee Sin.
He did start topside, and he did actually take the blue buff, which is a little bit surprising. This does obviously mean that his energy restores quicker, and he will have a little bit more damage inside of skirmishes, and maybe this is actually tying into his desire to head bottom lane, so he wants as much as possible for when he shows up there. But nonetheless, I still feel like it's not a very good decision to take away that blue from your mid.
Well, and Punch is actually going for the fullest of full clears on his jungle, which means that he might be a little bit behind where Steel is already getting down to the bottom lane, warding that up, heading back into his very full jungle. Who do you think got the benefit or got the better start out of those 2 jungle routes?
I mean, Punch is okay, and Steel is alright as well. I think that the Scuttlecrab does grant a little bit of safety, but obviously Punch is going to come out ahead, just in terms of the jungler perspective. But nonetheless, it does look like he is looking to make something happen, maybe down in bottom lane. But this sort of a gank approach, maybe it feels as though he thinks Steel is going to be here.
Oh, and here goes Cougar already getting that love tap onto Arrow, trying to find it. We'll refresh the concussive blows, but not going to lock anybody down, at least for the time being. A nice aggressive trip down to the bottom lane. And Punch actually has the highest KDA of every player in KeSPA Cup so far at 38. So certainly a little bit overstated due to the matchup that KONGDOO had versus, I believe it was KEG Seoul in our first round of 12 matches, but still impressive stat nonetheless. Going up against Steel. Now, this is a guy totally unproven, never seen this guy out here, and so Punch going into that, we'll see how that works out as he does get jumped on Steel with a nice amount of damage. Now, red buff versus blue means that if Punch wanted to fight, it might have gone in his favor, but you can't fight when you don't know, when you're on the losing side of mids, and Fly would have gotten there first.
Yeah. And it looks like Steel actually hunting for him. They're going to know exactly where he is right now.
Ward over the wall there, just sends the Spider for a little bit of extra vision, but he does know that Roach is coming down, who will punch him back into Punch. A lot of damage here, and Steel might have just overextended. There's the slow, the flash in from Punch, going to land the Q. This repel cannot last long enough. It's actually first blood to Edge.
And that's a pretty big pickup for them right now because Punch was falling behind in the jungle, but Steel really, I think, overestimating how strong he was right now and what kind of a response KONGDOO could offer to that type of an invade. So I like the invade in theory, but I feel like his execution and how he played it out was a little bit suboptimal.
Also interesting about Edge, not only just getting that first blood, which we are going to watch again, Steel just going a little bit too aggressive on his hunt.
Yeah, and you can just see this right here, and I really like just flashing in, getting everything that you can, and they gave the kill over to Edge, which is the best target for that kill to go over to. You want to get your Syndra as far ahead as possible.
Well, speaking of getting ahead, Someday ulting Roach, going to subjugate him back to base. And Someday's another kind of question mark for KT. If I have the stat correct, Someday actually got solo killed in every single game of the postseason that KT played. So that's not a great way to secure yourself as one of the top 3, top 4 teams in LCK. Certainly a better performance we're looking for from him. Googer, the one taking most of his damage, Summoner Kill to try to get him back to base, or back to turret alive. An Arcane Shift, the KDM duo survive for now, but lose a lot of HP. And now it's Fly going to jump in onto Punch, takes him down very low, at least below half HP, and now back up to top lane. There's even more trading going on all across the map. Lots of aggression. Yep,
and Someday not having teleport or a flash available to him right now. Roach still has his flash up. And so there is a little bit of a CS discrepancy favoring Someday up there in that top lane. However, that's all right, as Roach does have the assist. And I mean, if we're just looking at all the lanes right now, I feel like Edge falling behind in CS is a little bit bizarre. Oh, well, hold that though.
Oh, the longest of range stuns, and that Thunderlord's on to Fly. Edge actually walks into a cannon minion wave, so it's a little bit more of an even trade than it started out being. And now it's Punch. Around the blue buff, just wants to make sure that Steel is not in the area. Steel's actually on the other side of the map doing his red at this point as Punch looks towards the top lane, maybe looking for an aggressive dive. He's down to half HP. There's the punch into the wall there. Roach taking up the turret. A nice ult actually makes Someday a little bit invulnerable, but Roach is there to finish it. A very solid gank coming in for the second kill on KONGDOO Monster.
Yep, and KONGDOO Monster is playing the map pretty well right now, and Punch following up on another kill, and we're going to take another quick look at it. So they know that Someday does not have his flash available, and I really like the positioning that Roach was able to take, and Punch just knocking him away with the dragon kick right there and enabling Roach to finalize the kill is going to be really good for that Poppy matchup.
Yep, perfect tanking there by Roach. Picked up the buckler to tank an extra turret shot. Was able to get out. I actually thought he might have prevented that kill thanks to the knockup from his ult, but not actually the case. Second kill coming down. Edge setting up for when Fly tries to walk back to lane. Is he going to be scouted out here? There's Edge with a lot of balls over the wall, stunning him out. Fly forced to take the scenic route back to mid.
And Fly gonna come back to mid lane, probably just push this wave and then maybe look for a recall. He definitely wants to complete his items right there. Sitting on quite a bit, and he is very vulnerable right now to Edge. Syndra has a very, very high lethal range on her entire combo.
Also brought Cleanse to the mid lane, so we'll be able to get out of Rune Prisms, Cocoons, anything that's trying to stop her from getting the job done. So still some danger. That's why Fly is walking back to his second tier turret just to make sure he's out of that lethal range.
Yep. And Steel not really doing so much so far. Keeping up in CS, so ahead of CS of Punch, but significantly less impactful as this game has been underway. And I mean, if everything keeps going the way that it does, it feels like KONGDOO Monster is going to continue to find advantages, and Poppy nowhere behind at all as we approach into the mid game, and that's going to be extremely problematic for KT's team composition.
Right, and so for KONGDOO, keep in mind this is the revamped version of the old EM Fire roster. If you guys were Najin EM Fire fans from way back in the day, they came KONGDOO and just looked terrible after the reform. They lost every single game in LCK, got relegated down to Challengers. But they used that time very wisely. They crushed Challengers, were the first team to make it out, and ever since then have actually looked pretty good. They showed solid laning, great stats through the first round, coming in here versus KT, a team that certainly you would have to be crazy not to favor over the newly promoted Challengers team, but one that are having some difficulties here early on, which we shouldn't overstate because it's only 10 minutes in, but still, it's looking good for KDM.
And right there, Edge got caught up, but there's no way to find a lethal on him. We can see both junglers posturing around the top side of the map right now, and really all that Punch needs to do is wait for opportunities to present themselves and then just go in with his mid and top laner and find kills. And given that Arrow and Hachani have not been able to find a way to get a 2v2 off in bottom lane, looking for a kill with that Ash Arrow, it's becoming really problematic as we are beginning to move towards that 13-15 minute mark where everyone's going to start completing their first 4 items, and Dragon's going to become a real contested fight as well.
Yeah, already kind of setting up for it. Lots of pressure there. And even Roach starting to actually fare pretty well against Someday up on the top half of the map. KONGDOO actually thought Punch was just going to retreat back to the Dragon and start that one up, but not so aggressive just yet. Kind of cool little tidbit about Edge in the mid lane versus Fly, if we keep the camera here for a while. Edge actually used to be the sub on KT, which is kind of where he got his start. It didn't actually wind up proving himself in that situation. He then left KT and now is actually fighting back against them again, so definitely kind of knows what that environment is like. Now he gets the chance to prove his skills against Fly, their current and incredibly skilled mid laner, but oh boy.
Oh. I'm wondering if that ward north of Dragon actually spotted them. Otherwise, that's some pretty impressive star sense from a first-timer.
Yeah, Steel overextended once, and maybe that was just enough to make him say, okay, well, let's play it safe from now on out, after he did get caught in that upper KONGDOO jungle. Keep an eye on Guger, who's coming back down. Arrow gets speeded away from that turret, just trying to play it safe, cautious, careful, Punch up towards the mid lane. Waiting to pull the trigger on anyone, but will actually run straight into Steel. A lot of damage being put down as he is pushed back away, but an arrow from downtown immediately cleansed on out. Edge out of there, but can they find anything on Steel? Oh, fails his flash from the wall. He gets kicked over by Punch, but it's not enough to save him. Edge, though, does go down there, Fly with a ton of damage. Arrow in the back line in a great position. Will be dishing out the damage on the Punch, who will flash away, but now it's Saul having the arcane shift, but he can't get away from the Rune Prism. He's going to get busted. Arrow for the kill. KONGDOO fall in that fight 2-1 against KT.
Yep, and KT, I mean, that was some actually pretty excellent team fighting by KONGDOO Monsters with the exception of the missed Braum ultimate, but Cleanse coming out from Edge right there, and you can see that Steel went up at the wrong time. Fortunately for him, he did not get knocked up by that Braum ultimate, but Punch was able to salvage that, and Fly just doing enormous amounts of damage. The heal from Soul able to come out and help Guger live right there, but at the cost of his own life, as even though his flash was available to him, he did not use it to get away, not that he probably could have gotten away. And this is sort of the fights where it's going to be a lot more beneficial for KT to take them, because Poppy is such a vital component to KONGDOO's ability to take sustained fights.
So maybe talk a little bit about how that's going to look. We did talk about the Ocean Drake and how it will become a contested objective here pretty soon as we look to secure some ward coverage around them. That's why Cougar's in the area. Punch, though, coming down. And like I said, talk about what these fights are going to look like when we do have these objectives and how Roach is such a key part to that.
Well, I mean, at this point, Roach is going to be the only real tank currently as Punch is continuing to itemize offensively. And Cougar, he is going to be a little bit tanky, but anytime his Unbreakable is on cooldown, I mean, he doesn't really do much for his team other than apply passives to everyone on KT. So definitely fights without Poppy are very difficult for them, whereas KT will thrive in those type of environments because of who their champions are.
We've yet to find exactly the opportunity for KT to thrive. That last fight did go in their favor. But in a straight-up 5v5, still a question. Now, Steel down on the bottom half of the map is on a ward, so won't be effective at least for now. So what advantages does that give KT now that they know or does that give KONGDOO now that they know where KT's jungle is?
Well, I mean, at this point, yeah, they're going to set up this play, and Steel might go down here, although Roach has come down. I don't know if he was necessarily needed, but maybe they want to actually use this opportunity to sort of pick up the bottom tier 1 turret, and they're going to be on a race, which I don't think that they can win. Someday is raising that turret really quickly.
Yeah, the power of Trundle, but Punch coming around the corner realizes he will be scouted out by that pink ward, coming around behind the turret. But this is turret first blood for KT. Does that make up for losing Steel?
Well, they take the gold advantage back off of that. Okay.
Oh my god, Cougar does get stunned underneath the turret. Here comes Fly off to the side. A nice hit will knock Arrow away from the fight. And now it's Someday very far forward off the teleport in. Cougar's still alive. Is this the turnaround that KDM are looking for? The stun does go forward, only stunning Fly. He'll go down, and now it's a turret. Vulnerable will be taken, and KONGDOO turn the fight for a kill.
Yep, and that was some pretty good team fighting by both sides. Roach with a very crucial ultimate, knocking away members of KT Rolster, and even when Fly arrived, it was basically completely useless at that point. They still had the exhaust up, able to manage Someday for KDM, and now they're going to be rewarded also with the Dragon.
Dragon falling, and not the 5v5 that we were talking about it maybe setting up to be, because KONGDOO are actually taking the initiative to force things like that turret situation down bottom, and Fly just ineffective, as you can see right there. Yeah,
so you can see Roach knocking away members of KT Rolster, and even though Someday came in, he got exhausted and he was all but useless, and at this point, Fly, it was just him trying to run away from everything because there wasn't any real open angles for him to try to just dish out tons of damage. And then once Edge had arrived, the stuns and the damage coming out from Syndra is just immense.
Very true. Now, speaking of tons of damage and stuns and damage, Someday up on the top is going for this super aggressive Trundle build. Now, why do you think he's doing that instead of maybe going for the more supportive tanky route?
Well, I mean, he could go for the tanky route, but the Ravenous Hydra into Iceborne Gauntlet is still a viable path to go into. Generally, Trundle does want one offensive item. The only alternative that he could have gone into would be the Titanic Hydra, but I feel like against KONGDOO Monster's team composition, a lot of their damage is sustain-oriented instead of straight-up burst, with the exception being Syndra. So in that scenario, his ability to lifesteal through everything is probably going to provide him a lot more strength inside of team fights rather than just having HP from Titanic.
Okay. Nice to see him being confident enough to build that up, and did have a decent lane phase against Roach, but it's not necessarily about doing well against the Poppy, it's about putting her so far behind she won't scale up, and I don't really think that was accomplished, correct?
Correct. And I mean, at this point, Poppy, she does have her Sunfire Kate and the Ninja Tabi.
Oh, Arrow immediately hits onto Cougar. The fight going to start. Will they follow it up? Arrow pretty low, and they don't commit. Sorry for interrupting. It was just like kind of caught up in the big Arrow committal.
No, yeah, absolutely. That had a possibility to create a lot of things for either team, you know, depending on how it went. And so right now we're at 19 minutes, and it looks like maybe we'll take a little bit of a breather in the game as Edge up there in top lane going to look to push in that wave, and they're just sort of trying to establish vision control right now. And Someday down in the bottom lane, level advantage over Roach. That is quite big, and now we're just taking a look at the gold difference between everyone. And right now, the most noticeable gold differences are in the jungle and mid. Steel might just die here.
Yeah, the 2v1 concussive blow is going to land there. Summoner heal actually will get him away, but not for long. Will finally go down. Actually saves him long enough for Soul to pick up the kill, which is a great place to put it on KONGDOO.
Oh, and stealing away that big golem. 5-punch.
They're not golems anymore, they're Krugs. They're the artist formerly known as golems.
Well,
now they're taken out, and so will the top lane turret. It's the second one of the game there for KONGDOO. Doing a pretty decent job, but we're about to watch this catch once again. Steel, not long for this world, just getting knocked up and taken out.
Yeah, trying to take the red buff. He had a little bit of vision, but honestly it wasn't enough. And so Steel just getting caught out right there and going down was pretty unfortunate because it also resulted in the fall of their tier 1 top turret.
And you can really start to see maybe some of that inexperience coming to fruition here. Steel 0-4 in a lineup for KT that is not doing very badly across the board. I mean, some days up 20 CS, even Arrow and Hachani faring pretty well after a rough start, losing those 3 summoners, and KDM across the board just actually, crossing all their T's, dotting all their I's, and checking every box that they come to, up 6-2.
Yep. And I mean, right now, 0-4-0, not the best performance on your first debut.
Yeah, it's no profit, that's for sure.
And you can only wonder actually how it's also maybe affecting his mental right now, given that, he probably knows that he is playing for one of the most famous teams in the history of South Korean esports. And having a performance like this in his first game ever can't be affecting him that much. So it really makes you wonder, is he going to start second-guessing himself for engagements later on? And KT can't afford to have that happen.
Yeah, he actually talked about it in the KT video interview coming into today's games. We see Edge versus Fly. There's the exhaust committed. Edge backing away. He should be able to disengage safely. Some pings on the top lane. So, yeah, Steel actually mentioned, there's a lot of pressure coming into what he considers to be one of the big 3 teams in Korean League of Legends, and that he was watching them play at the watching KT Arrows play in the season that they actually were able to win LCK. And at that moment, he was like, oh my goodness, this is, one of the biggest, best teams. So when he had the opportunity, he said he really realized how much work and effort it takes to maintain your spot as one of those, the biggest, most storied organizations in Korean esports. And still needing to put in maybe a little bit more to fully earn his spot here on the lineup. Soul gets cocooned, but not too much off of it. And like I said, Steel with a lot of pressure.
Yep, and Goozer taking a little bit of damage, forced to flash away right there. Unbreakable was up, but didn't want to risk going down as Dragon was only 10 seconds away, and Edge in bottom lane just pushing. And they also have Roach up there in the top lane with Teleport, now caught up in levels 2 someday. And honestly, Poppy kills turrets pretty quick, so depending on what this dragon is, it is a Inferno Drake, so that is actually going to be pretty important. Had it been perhaps a Water Dragon or a Cloud Dragon, you could actually maybe ignore it had someday gone down and just look to capture tower, but this is definitely going to be a Drake that KONGDOO Monsters wants to look to pick up.
Keeping an eye on it. Now Steel is in there. Can he live up to his name? The repel dropping down, and he will get it! His KT stolen away as now KONGDOO Monster trapped in the pit. Steel actually on the opposite side, so they can't even flash over that way to escape. Damage coming in though. It's Punch to find the kill on a Someday, and KONGDOO actually turning this arrow. Not a lot of peel there. Edge in the back, perfectly protected. Roach there with 1 kill. Edge turns around, stuns the Spiderlings, but not the Spider. KT disengage after getting the Dragon, but losing 2.
Yep, and that was a little bit weird. Edge was locked up for... It looked for so long, it almost looked like he was spaced out against the Dragon Wall for a little bit, but they win the fight nonetheless, and it is a big victory for KT in the sense that it is an Inferno Drake, but they did lose 2 members to do it, and the gold advantage extends to 4,000 right now for KONGDOO Monsters, and they're looking poised to possibly just win another fight and take a Baron. So we look at this fight, and Steel comes in here. He gets the steal, and then just watch Someday's pillar. It was absolutely fantastic. You can see Edge is actually unable to move at all. Hachani came over the wall, but KT just doesn't have any damage right now against this Poppy, and this is what I was talking about earlier on, about how vital Poppy is to their team fighting.
Right, yeah, you could see Fly actually try to get the damage down on Poppy, who was really body blocking to protect Edge, and the rest of KONGDOO were trapped in the pit, and Fly just completely ineffective in making that happen at all. So kind of questionable, and you can see the the Spectre's Cowl actually completed there for Roach. Means that even though he was able to go armor early, magic resistance coming in, definitely going to help him there versus Fly. Baron, though, started up. KONGDOO will find the engage over the wall, repel into the pit. Steel kicked out. Can he get back in to live up to his name once again? KONGDOO now damaging Baron once again. It's up to them. Smite's good. Punch secures it for KONGDOO Monster. Now Roach very low. He's zoned for a long time. He's dead, and KT on a big I don't know what you call it, chase. There we go. Nice assassination there by Soul, who will execute by killing Steel. And now on the other side, Hachani trying to keep this fight alive, but taking too much poke, he backs away. KT not willing to take no for an answer, though. He will still pile on the damage there. Fly pretty low, but he's will back out. Lots of damage being put out by that Rise Arrow. Through the exhaust, will not be able to pick up a kill, and now the fight resets. Yeah, after what feels like forever.
And the fight will reset, and it looked like KONGDOO Monsters actually made a pretty big mistake. When Steel went into the Baron pit, Baron still had about 3,600 hit points remaining. They could have easily just killed Steel rather than kicking him out of the pit, but nonetheless, Roach denying everyone's ability to get into the Baron pit. Absolutely fantastic, and Steel not having Flash, there was no second opportunity into the pit, so they got the Baron at the cost of Cougar and Roach going down. And honestly, KT almost actually continued to press on with this fight and pick up more members, but some good teamwork by Roach, or by Punch and Edge.
Oh, Edge. Not going to allow any happy times there for KT. That's why I was actually highlighting in that fight, Hachani like coming around the corner, trying to keep the fight going. It almost wound up just being catastrophic, maybe for both teams. But in the end, Baron buff is the big win there for KONGDOO.
And here we go right now as mid-siege begins on the Tier 2 inner turret. But there's no minion wave right now.
Starting to see a really sizable difference between both junglers. Even though Punch did lose that Inferno Drake, coming up big on the Smite, had a nice kick to get Steel out of the Baron pit to secure that objective, and just really crushing it there on what is one of his favorite champions to play. Actually, in Challengers, he was more of like a Rek'Sai Elise, like just only alternating between those two, the strongest junglers at the time for those patches. But shows he's not afraid to make plays, and he's certainly pulling that off this time.
And right now, a little bit of bizarre 1-3-1 coming out where Cinder's in the side lane, but Arrow,
oh my god. He'll escape, but not confident positioning, let's put it that way. Or maybe he was too confident in his positioning.
Alright, well, at this point, KDM moving down to bottom lane right now, and there's no way to resist this push, so this tower certainly will fall. Gold lead extends to almost 6,000 gold now as we approach the 30-minute mark, and Roach stealing away the Cruxus right now, and he's even looking poised to potentially start attacking the top tier 2 turret, but someday arrives at top lane.
Over the course of the last season of LCK, out of all the teams that were projected to do very well, Rox Tigers came in, I believe, lost their first match 0-2, which was not a very strong start. A lot of the other organizations, SK Telecom, even looking a little shaky. But KT were one of the ones that always looked just great. Now, things have changed, and it's KONGDOO pressing their advantage. Second tier turret taken down. They will disengage successfully. So, really, what has changed? As soon as KT failed to make it to Worlds, really, what were your thoughts on some of the reasons, some of the weaknesses there that maybe you still see in their play today?
I mean, KT not having their jungler score right now is a pretty big part and a component to how they play, because junglers right now is such a vital role role. I think it's a lot different than if you lose another lane on your team. And Score wasn't just any jungler either. He was one of the best junglers in Korea, and he was one of the best players on KT Rolster in general. So having him absent from your team comp certainly doesn't help you here in the KeSPA Cup.
This is where Steel needs some help. So he like alt tabs, sees a Skype notification from Score. He's like, all right, time to get some help. But it's nothing but like one of those Baidu links. So he's like, no, I thought there was help there, but unable to find any real answers. It's just not going to work out for him so far. Now, he had that one steal, which was kind of a sign of life, but not in the area to steal here. And really, what's the play that KT needs to come back? Is it just like that hero cocoon from Steel that redeems himself? Or is it just solid team fighting? Where's the answers?
Well, I feel like currently the problem that they're facing is that their team composition, one of the gears that it has is the pick component, but they're not in a position to really create a pick because of how tanky some of the members on KONGDOO Monsters is. So then it's up to them to win a straight-up team fight. But they can't really do that either because of how far behind they are. So right now, KT Rolster is stuck between a rock and a hard place, and they're looking at needing to win some sort of a miracle Baron fight, maybe Steel even stealing the Baron.
That's certainly possible. Now, they have sort of weathered the storm. That was only a 1,000 gold Baron power play for KONGDOO. And while, yes, it did crack 2 second-tier turrets, I mean, for all intents and purposes, not really any game-changing objectives taken off the back of that. So, sure, there's double Ocean Drakes, which means a lot of sustain for KONGDOO, but maybe that means that they overstay their welcome and get picked off. We'll have to see what KT can accomplish.
And right now, KONGDOO Monsters setting their eyes on maybe looking for another team fight. Baron, though, in 50 seconds.
Trying to find something that Cocoon, that time actually not used for engage, but disengage to try to retreat further. That's not going to save the second-tier turret as KONGDOO return to the top lane. Don't really have any minions to continue their push, but they're putting the pressure on. Now, Soul down here taking the blue buff, just down here kind of doing that. Okay, well, okay, Gooker missing or dodging the arrow. Edge takes it, cleanses away. Someday, someday's on an adventure, LS.
Someday's looking like that occasional guy in solo queue that tries to run to the enemy nexus. That's his goal. Yeah,
no touchdown there, but he's gonna have that recall that takes half the time, but has a pretty long cooldown after TPing himself. Does get away. Ezreal, unfortunately, not an 80 carry with crowd control. So Someday makes it back safe and sound, but it will be a teleport mismatch. So when it comes to these Baron fights, which might just start here pretty soon, he'll have to be in the area if he wants to affect it.
Yep. And right now, definitely Someday wants to reach that Guardian Angel. You can see that he has the Chain Vest and the Negatron Cloak, which means he's pretty close to purchasing that item, and that's a very key item for them to have for the next team fight, and it would be a shame if he doesn't actually have it. But KONGDOO Monsters seem to know that they're up teleport advantage, and they've sent Poppy to go into split push mode, but fight might be brewing right here.
Punch going in, maybe looking for a pick there. Googer does have the Unbreakable, but is he strong enough to disengage? He will. Punch, though, going back in, no knockups off the Dragon's Rage. So both teams disengaged for now, but KDM able to clear out that Baron area.
And a little bit of a hiccup for both teams. As Someday recalled, we don't quite see if he has the Guardian Angel. I'm going to assume that he does. Teleport coming in, Punch very low on HP. This could get dangerous.
Well, Someday is walking there, but he's not there just yet. Steel in a great spot to steal this. Baron down to 4,000 health. KT positioning outside the pit. Cougar pretty low there. Baron dropping. Steel going in, but he's going to go down. Edge takes him out, and that's a good spike for Punch to secure the Baron for KONGDOO. Now, once again, KONGDOO's trapped in the back of the pit. Flash over the wall's not good enough to save Roach, and now it's Saul versus Someday. Over the wall is Roach. Arcane Shit to join him there. Saul and Roach Punch trying to escape. Now there's Fly to block their path. He might not be strong enough to withstand the damage. Nice Nerf's Embrace to protect him. Flash over the walls, good for Punch. KDM run around KT and managed to save their carry in jungle to surprisingly get out without losing their entire squad.
Yeah, so it's a 2-for-1. Both junglers actually actually botched the smite fight there. You see it actually went to 32, and Edge able to get the Baron, I believe. And at this point, it was all just like, can we all live? And Roach, unfortunately, not able to live, actually flashed the wall, even though projectiles were in the air to execute him. And from there, I mean, this was actually really cute by both teams. And credit to KONGDOO Monsters for pretty impeccable team fighting right here, managing to ring around the Rosie and get back out.
I'm just thinking about the path that they took through that KT jungle to escape. Like they run towards the red buff, they arcane shifts and safeguard over the wall, and then they complete they turn the corner and make it out by flashing back over Baron. Pretty cute escape, and they'll stay alive. But certainly some questions to be asked here about KONGDOO Monster. They do secure their second Baron buff, but after only gaining a couple of second tier turrets and 1,000 gold off the first Baron, we'll see if they can accomplish more this time around.
And it looks like there is the Elder Dragon spawning in just under 40 seconds now, and right now they have a wave in top lane for them. Baron buff minions in mid lane. And Syndra is absolutely enormous.
Pretty gigantic, has 4 items completed against Arise, who's still working on completing his 4th. And I think the biggest thing, no Void Staff there, which means that, especially when it comes to Roach, he's just not going to be able to deal with that big front line for KONGDOO.
And that was super problematic, actually, by the way, that Arrow had just missed his Enchanted Crystal Arrow right before this Dragon fight. So it will come back up, but by no means is that something that you wanted to just have happen.
And here we go, circling the wagons, rallying the troops to the mid lane for KONGDOO. They look to push in these Baron buffed up minions. Now Someday does have his teleport back off cooldown after using it to escape earlier. Roach does not, so he will have to take the long walk from bottom lane to join his team. They do want to press this advantage home. Still waiting to see what he has to offer. Running out of minions here, just trying desperately to protect this Baron-empowered cannon creep that continues to poke down this turret.
Yeah, and the decision-making to go for this turret over trying to create a Elder Dragon fight, I think is KONGDOO Monsters actually looking for an endgame fight.
A lot of damage there on the fly, down to half HP before the fight even starts. Steel getting low as well, and the turret down. Edge, though, the one to actually be dropping. Nice lock-in to try to protect him in the backline. Big front lining there by Roach, who will drop. It's Guardian Angel protecting him for now. Edge out of the fight with the low health bar, but dropping on KT. Can they escape? It's Punch to find the first pick on Arrow. KONGDOO with a big pick, and Steel Someday just lucky to be alive. Someday not going to survive very much longer after reviving with his Guardian Angel, and this actually might just be the push that ends the game.
This could definitely be the push that ends the game. Fly completely healed up, Hachani having summoner spells too, Roach looking to knock people away. Misses.
Okay, well, Gugar's gonna die there. He will be reviving pretty soon, but the dive too strong as Fly gets exploded. Hachani flashing away from his base to try to just stay alive, but these Nexus turrets will not survive. They are down, and so will go the Nexus as KONGDOO Monster double up KT in kills and take a 14-7 victory in game number 1.
Yeah, and that was a pretty impressive game by KONGDOO Monsters from a mechanical point of view. Their team fighting in multiple fights back-to-back was impressive so often. It was so clean. And their Baron control, vastly superior to KT, and Steel looking very underwhelming right now,
yes,
at least in game number 1.
Super underwhelming. I would not be surprised if we don't see a sub back in to maybe strengthen that role, which certainly seemed to be their weak spot. For KT, pretty weak performance there, not just the jungle, but playing together. For KONGDOO, nothing but big thumbs up in pretty much every area. Syndra play was on point after our last series, where it didn't look so good. Let's take a look at this final team fight for both of them.
Yeah, and so when this push starts, I feel as though they are going for an endgame push because of the decision to do this while Elder's up. And I mean, you can just see how everyone's team fighting. Edge staying on the edge of the team fight and just constantly adding in support and utilities for his team. And that was a beautiful kick by Punch. Unfortunately, missed the ability to fully kill Steel, but once Someday went down, it was all but over.
Coach MC, the boss toss in the back, giving some congratulations and backpats to KONGDOO, who put down a pretty impressive performance in game number 1. This is a best of 3, so we'll be taking a quick break before we come back with game number 2. Find out if KC can bring it back.